Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. Today, I'm flying solo. I'm going to cover something in the Epstein files. I think it's really important. I've titled this one Civil Litigation Files. And people have read pieces of these in the documents. They're really horrifying. This is like the worst stuff imaginable. But I don't think they may see the bigger picture, which is the reason why I want to do this stream, which will end up on my podcast. For people who don't know, uh, I do have a podcast that's in the top 0.5%. I guess it's in the top 20,000 podcasts in the world. It's been investigative journalism. I've done a lot of other different topics. And then this Epstein files dropped about a month ago. Today's March 3rd, 2026. And I've really been reading through it. I mean, I think confirmed a lot of the stuff, like kind of mysterious stuff people are looking into this network, this secretive network. There's a lot of documents, and it's poorly by my opinion, intentionally poorly organized. So it's very hard to understand what's where, why it's there, the way it was dropped, the poor, I mean, the almost like rudimentary means by which the DOJ dropped it is I can only see that, in my opinion, as intentional because it's harder to go through. Anyway, I've been reading through a lot of them, and I'm kind of bounce around. Some of the material they have is arguably copyrighted. Stuff that's associated with the government isn't. It's just a public domain immediately. But there's some documents in here that are I'm going to read for fair use journalistic purposes. I'm not going to read them in their entirety. This document, if you're looking at this, is 200 pages. Um, so I don't even know how much of it I'm going to be able to get through. But I will put what I'll try to do is put the EFTA numbers. What for people who aren't familiar with a lot of civil litigation, when it gets to just huge amounts of files, like in the Epstein files, they'll apply what's called a Bates number. Bates numbers for these are like start out with the acronym Epstein Files Transparency Act, which was passed last year, which mandated the release of it's a very simple, actually, piece of legislation. It's only a page long, but it mandates this. And so this was all stamped. So you see these stamp numbers. And I'll put the stamp numbers to the document so you can see this in its entirety. But I think hopefully when I'm done with this presentation, people will get a really good understanding of what's in here and the idea of how much civil litigation has gone on and it's not divulged to the public. This first document's really interesting. It's just a simple document, but it shows these names that I've talked about in the past. And you can go to my website actually and see this, some of these names. But the guy who's mentioned here is a guy by the name of Paul Castle. And he was involved in a lot of older kind of litigation. I think he and Bradley Edwards, who's written a book about Epstein and was one of the victims' attorneys, sued Dershowitz. So they were in a defamation suit. And Castle was involved in a lot of things that went back and forth. And I have, I think, one of his most important documents. The guy's a super lawyer. There's no question. I mean, from lawyers, if you like stratify, like, muni lawyers or maybe guys who do DUIs or whatever, Paul Castle, for in my opinion, is at the top tier of like the intellects among pretty smart people generally. But I think he has a JD and a BA from Stanford, and he clerked for one of the Supreme Court justices. And that's a very coveted position. Like it's one of the things that you kind of put a feather in your hat when you're done with law school. If you had really good grades and was very high achieving, you would go clerk there, and you basically write legal briefs and study for member of the Supreme Court, one of the top 9 attorneys in the country. So Paul Castle's CV, his resume is great. He's still around. I mean, this document, the reason I have this and why it's starting off first is this is a letter sent March 2025. If you listen to my other shows, maybe you haven't, you'll know that in March is when the FBI got notification from the top. This is before the act. They got notification to start redacting everything. And there was a direct requirement to start redacting information in the files pertaining to presidents, celebrities, etc. And that's another document. It's probably one of the more interesting documents that was dropped because it showed this kind of, I mean, I think it's a massive cover. It's one of the major cover-ups in American history, if not the most, because of how important it is, the gravity of the situation. But that document is also right around this time. I'm trying to bring up, if you go to my website, there's, sorry about that. Every time cord it gets taken out of this thing. Let's see. There we go. I think I'm back up. Um, but if you go to my website, William Ramsey Investigates, and you go to the, I'll show you right now. If you go to, well, if I can get it right, if you go to the blog, and I'll go here right now. It's a really interesting. It's well worth your time, and it's from the Giuffre materials. It's called Response and Opposition to Motion to Intervene, and it's from the Ghislaine Maxwell, Virginia Giuffre litigation. Let me see if I can pull this up. And some of this research is Paul Castle's on here, so I think he's on the bottom down here somewhere. There's Bradley. So that's Bradley Edwards. If you're familiar with that, one of the reasons why I got involved, this is like 2019, did a lot of shows, but it was an interview with Derek Brose interviewed Bradley Edwards, and Brose went in front of like the Palm Beach mansion. And I was like, who is this guy Epstein? I didn't know much about him. And I hadn't really started my podcast at that time. I was putting interviews on like YouTube. This is before I got censored. And then I got into it, and I did so many shows with Roberta Glass. So Roberta Glass of the True Crime Report. If you get a chance, go check those out. She was literally in like Manhattan going to these hearings and going, and then like he died mysteriously. We did a show the next day. We're both so interested. Like I've been friends with Roberta for a long time. We did shows on Nexium, and she's like one of my favorite guests. And the people who listen to my show always, commends her. She's super smart. She was the one who told me a lot about innocence fraud. I didn't see the big picture at the time. I had written that book on West Memphis 3 in 2012. But anyway, you'll see Paul Castle's name down here, Pro Hack Beast. I think he still works at the University of Utah. Anyway, this is a very important document. Check it out. This was the intervention. People were intervening in this case in 2019. I think Dershowitz with the assistant of Cernovich. So check that out. And he's pictured in there. This is my website. I used to have it all in black. People always think if it's in black, like it's too sinister. So I changed it to a nice little turquoise. But you can check out a lot of my old documents here. A lot of people don't know, but I have like stuff I really, when I first started writing, really almost like for the public. It's like little things, order of 9 angles, things like that. Here's Paul Castle right here. Anyway, getting back to this document, the civil document, he's writing here. I think it's him writing for multiple victims to Pam Bondi, right? That's the Attorney General. Trying to get an attached order to General Pam Bondi rapidly. I haven't been able to locate an email address that works for the Attorney General. He wants to send it to the Attorney General. This is in the files. This is the article that he wants to send to her. This is like on his letterhead, February 28th, 2025. This is also in the files. They're just saying this stuff, but this is really important. There's little pieces in here that are super important. And some of those are the fact that he and I think Bradley Edwards have represented 200 victims civilly. So civil litigation. And he's really worried. He's a victims' right advocate, so he's worried about the victims getting their names out in public, which is definitely a concern. But I think somewhere in here it says like redactions. Oh yeah, because we have considerable experience with the case, we and knowledge of 200 victims' names and other identifying information. So they know 200 victims. Excuse me. I don't know how many cases they've done. I thought it was something like that, but it's just an important document because he's writing and Bradley's writing, and they're saying they're counsel for many sexual assault victims, and they're trying to get in touch with Pam Bondi, right? So there's also this other group that's victims' rights that's in these documents. You'll see the EFTA number. It's 000379000. And it's just another, like, there's just these cases are just so grim, man. I interviewed her. She's forced to live in the house in a crawl space. She stayed around the time of 5 or 6 years old. She was taken to Florida where she was trafficked. She recalled there were a number of young kids that had recognized the area. She was 17. She was taken to the Virgin Islands where she was sold again. During this encounter, recalled being taken downstairs to a room that looked like a horse stall that had short walls where she and other little girls were viewed and forced to have sex with blank and other men. This is heavily redacted. She recalled one man in his 30s, brown hair, wheelchair bound, who gave instructions to the other men to do with the girls. There's a lot of details. And berated by calling her an animal, and his having sex with him would make her status better because he was perfect. And so, like, the reason she's coming forward to help other women victimized over the years. So a lot of this stuff happened after his arrest, like the dates. This is, remember, if you remember, there's a lot of things that came in at the time. So once Epstein was arrested in July of 2019, the FBI had all those intake reports. They had like a flurry, really a blizzard. And you see little pieces of those intake reports. It's very important. Like those are also important pieces because they're coming in, but the FBI is, not taking any action, not to my knowledge. So a lot of stuff happened after his arrest. So people either heard about it or felt comfortable, they felt safe. And so a lot of this stuff happened. And then, like, these are big time law firms. This is going to the US attorney. Like, so this is information. This is like part of my opinion why it's a cover up. Like, they're trying to contact these people, like, hey, something bad is going on. Check this out. They're going to the government. This Audrey Strauss, I think, was the person installed after a guy by the name of Joffrey Berman, who was the original guy who oversaw the case when Epstein got arrested at Teterboro, right? If you remember, he flew into New Jersey, and that's where they arrested him. There's a lot of advocacy. This, I think, Marsh law firm specializes in this type of these type of cases, like sexual abuse. Yeah, I wouldn't listen to this like with anybody in the background. This is going to get really rough. But the testimonies, all in my opinion, all kind of, they overlap. They rhyme with each other. They're similar. They're talking about sexually abused, blank was sexually abused by individuals meeting the descriptions and circumstances of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. She has evidence of possible co-conspirators. So there's the co-conspirator document that Berman did. If you remember, I've kind of gone over that. You can see that on X too. So if you haven't checked out my X page, my suggestion is to go to my X, William Ramsey. It's at William Ramsey IN, and just start at January 30th and scroll through because I posted so much stuff. I posted stuff about the sonogram, and which was confirmed by Grok. I would take that as the grain of salt. But that just, people just were freaked out, and they're validated. It's validated by some of the testimonies I'm going to talk about right now, or statements. This is civil litigation, so it's not criminal. These are like independent parties going to law firms. And I just said, like earlier, that Castle and Edwards know of 200 victims. I don't know if all those people sued. My understanding is that the total payout, I'm definitely quoting Ryan, I forgot his name. It's from the anti-neocon blog. But he said there's been 800 million in payouts. And there's a whole thing of civil litigation that took place by the, I think it was civil, by the U.S. Virgin Islands for damages, and there were payouts in the tens of millions of dollars in that case alone. So super dark stuff. This is like eyes wide shut levels of evil. Corroborated by documents and photographs she's provided, confirms this. There's passports, foster parents. These are all clues, like foster homes and places of like trafficking and abuse, and schools. And there's stories about Interlaken in Michigan. And this was an industrial level trafficking operation. It's always presented this fake story that, it's just Jeff and he's a sexual abuser. No, that is 100% incorrect. He's abusing them, but he's almost like training them like as a stable, it seems like. I don't even think that's my opinion. That's what the evidence shows. Ordered foster parents sexually abused her and trafficked her to others, including at parties at Fancy Rich House in New York City. There's evidence to suggest that I'm not going to read all these in detail, but I'm going to put links to them so you can read them if you want to go to the files. All you have to do is put in the EFTA. This one's EFTA 000781199. Evidence that suggests the Fancy Rich House was Epstein's New York City mansion, and that Epstein and Maxwell groomed and sexually abused Blank at the house. Described the owner of the Fancy Rich House as someone with curly hair on top of big fat eyebrows. She heard him called Jeffrey. She recalls massaging him. See, these are all consistent. Massage was a code word. It really meant some kind of sexual encounter. Wore a towel. This is all consistent with other stories. I'll get to the, I know a lot of you listening are probably commenting. I'll get to the comments at the hour mark. Tall, British accent, so this is consistent with Elaine. Something like Lane, right? So, Lane had taught other girls like her and older how to use oil to touch men like Jeffrey, showed them what to do. The description of the Fancy Rich House matches the location and features of the Manhattan mansion owned or controlled by Epstein in 1997. She said the Fancy Rich House was located at 9 on 71 Street. This is actually correct. That's the address of the mansion is the number 9 on 71st Street. It was actually featured in a show called Gossip Girl. I don't know if anybody's a Gossip Girl watcher. I was not. But my understanding of Gossip Girl is that it takes place on the Upper East Side in Manhattan, where Jeffrey lived. And they did some shot on one of the episodes. I think it went 6 seasons or 5 seasons. And they did some shot that involved some kind of like Eyes Wide Shut group, secretive Eyes Wide Shut group. And they did a shot of one of the actors right in front of Jeffrey's residence. And you can see the 9 in the background. Let me see if I can pull that up. Let's see. So, these are like public references of this stuff. Let's see. Here it is. Here it is for you guys. Stop. Share screen. This is the guy. Somebody might know this actor. I don't know who he is. But that's him in the background. You can see the 9. If you look at the upper right-hand corner, this is it. This is like the 9 from Jeffrey Epstein. So somebody knew. People knew. I think a lot of people knew what was going on. This is evidence. I don't even know what Gossip Girl was shot. I have no idea, but this is from Gossip Girl. Somebody in the comments may recognize this guy. Somebody in the chat. Welcome, chat. Welcome, everybody. Anyway. So, this is so graphic. I don't even want to go into this, but like they literally had pictures of CSAM, like child porn, from inside the mansion room, and just like the harassment that went on is off the charts. And these are all big time lawyers, like all this stuff. This is another law firm, and they sent something directly to Dershowitz in 2019. Nobody asked them about this stuff because they haven't gone through the civil litigation documents. But like, she's literally writing the history my client shares with your client, Jeffrey Epstein. I guess Dershowitz was representing Epstein at the time. I don't know. This is March 19th, 20. So this is March 2019. This is even before Epstein's arrested. So this is like, these are things that are just not aware. The public's just not aware of it. She says, Mr. Dershowitz, my client shares with your client, Jeffrey, is hands down the worst case of sexual depravity and misconduct I have come across in all my 27 years of representing victims of sexual assault and harassment. It's the sort of conduct that makes the blood boil and stomach churn of any decent person. Yes, you're right. In short, this is what she's saying. I'm not saying, I'm reading this. Your client raped when she was 14 or 15. So that whole notion, there's the young kids in these things. And then this other one of like CSAM was a 5-year-old child. Like, it's a 5-year-old. So that's the stuff that they took out. If you remember, and people may have missed the other interviews, you can go back and listen to them. But like Blanche, I think his name was. It's Bondi. Is the deputy attorney general said they dropped 3.5 million files and they left 2.5 because they were depicted death, torture, and child porn. So there's 2.5 million files that are brutal, but what's out there is already brutal. Summary of Epstein's sick and extremely harmful conduct, including the rape, is outlined below. She was a prime target for grooming for a pedophile like Mr. Epstein, who self-admitted he liked joking around in the files that he's a pedophile. And this is a whole course of like the grooming process. I don't want to go into it. It's too grim. But, the same things mentioned, 9 East 71st Street, which I just showed you a picture of it. She's being guided, this one girl. He's such a nice guy, Jeff is. There's the massage room. It's the same old story. These are all consistent. Stripped down, towel, birthmarks. Massage. I showed a massage table just the other day with the sonogram, which is kind of confirmed. Brock confirmed it, but I showed that like the massage tables are a consistent component. Gave her $300. Like, these are all detailed. It just goes on and on. Like, finally, one day during the fall year of her sophomore year, she was still 15, so she's 14 or 15 years old. As a consequence of the repugnant criminal behavior, right? Criminal will be filing on behalf of my client. Punitive award may legally claim from Mr. Epstein's extreme wealth. Where did it come from? I got some ideas. So, just goes on. This is another one. This is even a different one. This is a draft complaint. I think it was drafted in Supreme Court. But the stuff that happened took place, I think, in Miami. This is another civil litigation. It's not even funny. It's just a whole, like, there's a lot of the stuff that took place just hasn't been, to my knowledge, hasn't been covered by the media. Age 14, high school, freshman year, she was approached by a woman. We're calling the recruiter. Epstein was there. Should not be struggling. He's a caring guy. He knew a lot of people in the acting modeling world. It's back to this home. Showed her artwork in the room. A lot of paintings of nude women on the wall. It's all consistent. It just goes. We know that he had prosthetic breasts that he liked to have or whatever. Well, his master bedroom with a large jacuzzi and prosthetic breast on the wall in the bathroom that he could look at or play with while in the bathtub. So he didn't have a rubber ducky. He had rubber anatomy, female anatomy stuff. That's what it's according to this. Freshman year of high school. These are young kids, totally vulnerable kids. Their parents aren't around. There's just total redactions and stuff. Some of these are like another one. I mean, just like. I was taken to an underground location. I was blindfolded, so I would not know exactly where I was at. It was dark. We went through doors. We went downstairs. There was also an elevator in the location. I was kept in the stall. Looked like a horse stall that had short walls on the sides you could see inside. It wasn't really to keep me and the other little girls inside. It was to make it where we could be viewed. Epstein would walk past each girl, including myself, with a lot of men following him, and they would judge us. He told me I was fat and ugly. So that's what he called me. He forced me to have sex with a dog. And he said that I had to pretend it was him to see if I performed well. He said if I performed well, I could be his girlfriend. Then I would be allowed to be upstairs, he called it. He said the girls upstairs were pretty and they were his girlfriends. Then he raped me and I said I was evil because I liked it. There were a lot of pictures of naked girls on the wall. There you go again. I had to pray hard to be like them, he said. The girls, he said, performed well enough, went with the line of all the men, and they left. I was chained up. In Virgin Islands, I was on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship. They stopped there. I was 17 years old. I was blindfolded and taken to an underground location. If I had sex with him, that I wouldn't be such an animal. I was chained up. He said I wanted to be raped because I wanted to be more. This is her testimony. It's a lot of redactions. Medications. There's some that they didn't redact, which is interesting. I never received anything. The traffickers received money, antiques that were worth a lot of money. So it looks like they took payment in like antiques, according to this girl. If you refused to have sex with men, did your traffickers physically or psychologically harm you? Yes, they poked me with needles in the back of the legs. I was shocked with an electric machine in my head. I was told I was evil constantly. This is like traumatic mind control stuff. I was told I was evil constantly. For example, I'd walk out of the room. They killed the fish that was in the fish tank. When I returned to the room, they said, "Why did you kill the fish?" They made me think I was so evil I did bad things, and I didn't remember doing it. The psychological abuse was constant every day, all through the day. Name of trafficker and descriptions: Jeffrey Epstein in the 60s. I was brought to him by traffickers. He then trafficked me for sex with the other men he had with him. See, so this is it. It's Jeff is kind of like the intro, and then he gets farmed out. And I'm assuming these other people are paying Jeff. I'm assuming. In some way. I don't think anybody, and not to my knowledge, wouldn't be surprised if somebody's working on it. There's other really great researchers out there. There's this one guy, I wish I could remember his name. He got all the information on Bill Gates and like put out a document for free to people to read. Let me see if I can find it. So I'm assuming there's some kind of mechanism that Epstein had to either get something of value or launder money or something where he was getting some type of remuneration, is my guess. I was raped by Jeffrey Epstein multiple times. He was threatening to kill and harm other children if I didn't do what I said. He had video cameras. If I didn't do that, I caused other children to get hurt, then I would be put in jail. He called some of the children he chose to go places with his girlfriend. Yeah, so there's like all kinds of like statements and stuff like that. This is an interesting case. I don't think this was part of the files, but once Jeffrey died, then there was all kinds of other civil litigation that took place. And what people did is they wanted to sue his estate. So I think that the people who oversaw his estate were these guys, Darren Indike and Richard D. Kahn, who knew Epstein. Kahn was his accountant. Something's wrong with my mic. I don't even know. I think it's the jack in the back of my computer. It's lame. Anyway, this one is pretty graphic. This is the Florida one. Plaintiff comes from a Muslim family. Indike and Connor co-executors. I mean, the rape, sexual abuse, physical assault, mutilation, and sex and labor trafficking perpetrated under the direction of Epstein, which are described in detail below, occurred between January and May 2008. I forget when his arrest was, so maybe this is after his arrest. Gotta check. She was 26, 5 months. She was repeatedly abused, subjected to unwanted and unnecessary surgery of her genitals, mutilated, threatened, and sex trafficked. Prolonged, intentional, and depraved misconduct. She suffered severe injuries. Epstein and others working on behalf of her in concert with him falsely represented a plaintiff that the specific intent to deceive her to her detriment. They possessed powerful and corrupt influence over the FBI. The U.S. They had powerful influence over the FBI. This is according to the complaint. This is from 2021. The Department of Homeland Security's Department of Immigration and Customs, ICE, Florida State and law enforcement, and other persons of great power. And in the event that plaintiff ever told anyone or made any report to the authorities, Epstein and the others working on behalf would have her prosecuted as a prostitute, take her child away, and destroy her marriage. So that she lived in fear prior to 2000. She did not regularly follow news or public affairs and was unaware of the legal and criminal matters relating to Epstein. Epstein's pattern of criminal conduct. These are criminal acts, guys. I mean, where's the FBI or Bondi? This is so sick. Used his wealth, took pleasure in corrupting young, vulnerable, and innocent girls. It was widely known among individuals regularly in Epstein's presence that he obtained pleasure from corrupting, coercing, and inducing vulnerable girls or young or youthful-looking women, or including minors, into engaging in uncomfortable and unwanted sexual acts for his own gratification, as well as for the gratification of others to whom he trafficked these girls and young or youthful-looking women. Yeah, they mentioned the Southern District of New York, the criminal complaint, mutilation of plaintiff. Sometime thereafter, she was introduced to Epstein. Epstein's associate agent was introduced and known to plaintiff G. Max, whose actual name was Ghislaine Maxwell, at a barbecue hosted by plaintiff's employer. Okay. She was interested in doing it. She wanted a transaction of property. Nonetheless, over the course of the year 2007, Maxwell began an extended effort of inducement, persuasion, and grooming of the plaintiff. See, there's so much more information that came out after Epstein was put in jail. And then I think that Maxwell was prosecuted. Like, it's just so crazy that the government didn't follow up on this stuff. On a lot. Like, all that stuff that came into the FBI never made it to the public. It just shocks the conscience. Like, these are so many testimonies of horrible criminal stuff, and it just went into like a waste bin, and then it was released by the Epstein files, to the credit of the Congress. She was a skilled hairdresser. She could go to the Palm Beach estate. Epstein was completely naked, so this is kind of his standard stuff. Threats. Epstein ushered the plaintiff to the body of water and told her in explicit detail that, as had happened to other girls in the past, she would end up in this body of water and be devoured by the alligators should she ever reveal what Epstein had done to her. I'll repeat that. Epstein then ushered the plaintiff to the body of water and told her in explicit detail that, as had happened to other girls in the past, she would end up in this body of water and be devoured by the alligators. So you got to find out, like, what other people around Miami are missing or whatever. What are you paying taxes for? Like, this is so, it's just the crazy town. Plaintiff credited this threat until she learned of his death. She feared that Epstein would follow through on this explicit death threat. So they're threatening him with death. No wonder they didn't come forward. After leaving the Alligator Lake, Epstein and Maxwell proceeded to take plaintiff and her young son to a hotel in Naples, Florida. Raped and abused him, initiated a carrot and stick approach, continued to threaten her, have her son taken away, keep plaintiff's passport. This is consistent, like with other stuff, is taking the passport away. While making these threats, Epstein emphasized his personal connections to many powerful actors within the legal system and elsewhere, whom he asserted would not hesitate to act on his behalf. He claimed to have influence over the FBI, the United States Department of Homeland Security, Department of Immigration, ICE, and Florida State Law Enforcement, which repeats that. So, like, this is like a matter of national security if they're like above the FBI. In one instance, Maxwell threatened plaintiff that she would end up in the pond to be consumed by the alligators if she told anyone about the crimes committed against her. These death threats terrified plaintiff, especially given Epstein's claimed extensive network of powerful allies. During the same period in 2008, this is a civil case, right? So it's not like it's not been worked out in criminal court stuff. Like, I don't even know what happened to this case. I don't know what the outcome is. Trafficked by Epstein to a number of other men. So they go through. This seems like the pattern that I'm perceiving. So they go through Epstein, Maxwell. They're skilled. They know what to say. They know how to control them, and then they traffic them. It's my guess. Unwanted sexual relations with such men. Among these other rapists was a heavyset older man who was introduced to plaintiff as Walter, and another older man who was identified to plaintiff as local judge. Commercial sex acts, 5 harrowing months of rape, assault, and being sex trafficked. Plaintiff, who was of youthful appearance, had been admonished to Epstein to lie about her age and claimed to be 17 years old. Epstein forced plaintiff to submit to unwanted and unnecessary vaginal surgery performed as best as plaintiff can recall in a wealthy person's home by a man with a Russian accent for the ostensible purpose of tightening her vagina and creating the false impression she was a virgin for a high-profile client. So you see this kind of like there's medical doctors, because somebody posted this picture of Dr. Ting doing some procedure at the mansion, and there's like Israeli doctors around and like staff gynecologists, and just like the violent illegal procedure was botched, leaving plaintiff mutilated and pain, disabled, and permanently sexually dysfunctional. She was forced to paint a nude picture of herself, which Epstein then sold and provided to a man in Mexico. There's the Mexico connection, guys. I've said that before. There's other, like the FBI intake stuff. There's one where he's in Mexico, abusing people in Mexico. So that seems to be thing. Repeatedly photographed and videotaped plaintiff naked and or performing lewd activities. Among these films were ones which depicted plaintiff playing golf while naked. She was trafficked to be a minor. So then that's another thing they do. That's another thing that Virginia Giuffre and some of these other women said. It was like a multi-level marketing scheme. They were brought in and then they would be used to find other kids. And this plaintiff, who was anonymous, seemed to have gone through that same process. Also compelled plaintiff to keep in her house a locked box with property that Epstein purportedly owned. Plaintiff was instructed that if she ever touched or opened that box, she would be killed. She was also left with burner phones, wires, and other electronic devices that Epstein was seeking to conceal from discovery by law enforcement authorities. That makes perfect sense. This all, resonates. threats, loss of child, fraudulent statements, plaintiff's claims, equitable tolling, and equitable estoppel, tortious misconduct. I think these are criminal claims, multiple violations of 18 USC 1951. They're subject to, I don't know what those are. I don't know what those causes of action are. Maybe it's a civil rights thing. But this is just like they're going to throw you the alligators. But these are, you can tell when you read a lot of these cases, it's the same process. Like the same, like these documents are just incredible. There's trauma journals in here. So this is another one. This is another, some of these claims too, these are fairly recent. They're after the arrest and conviction of Maxwell and the death of Epstein. I believe he died. So they're all coming forward, and this seems like a flurry of civil litigation. Journal is called up. People have talked about this one. This is EFTA 02731254. There's like trauma stuff, chronological order. People were made contemporaneously in 2012, and just things that were written from May to July. It's the same stuff. Like I don't really want to go. It's Jeffrey and her, and they're moving away, and they're landing, and they're flying, and these are like evidence of trafficking or statements that should be I'm so effed up being down here again. No words would come. I'm told I was writing about it. I started to confide a bit in my friend. I slowly started to tell her what happened with Jeffrey and Ghislaine and why nighttime is especially hard here. I'm way too anxious. So they're traumatized, deliberately traumatized. I'm still terrified that Jeffrey will walk through the door at any moment. Couldn't breathe, panic attacks. I mean, they say getting things out will help, but that part only made me feel like a monster. I made my first intentional eye contact, and so many people saw and cried, and poor Blank was so upset because it wasn't with him despite the many weeks of the dog card. I don't know what that is, but it was with Blank. And after I had an absolute meltdown over the meal room being changed, I did it. I think that there's other people too, like there's other kids. There's photos of people, like these photos are never divulged, but it's like with Leon Black. We have shared the 2012 journal with you via the link. There are 2 PDFs. When we add additional documents, we'll let you know. But I don't know what those photos are. There's also photos that some of these victims took of Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein on a boat, which I don't have included on this. So just really rough. So like the trauma journal stuff, like somebody's these are it's kind of an intro. It's an easy way to translate. This is like a cipher, but it's pretty easy to translate. It's like be in a big evalet. You just have to read it, but somebody's translated them. There's somewhere in here. Here's the other one. This is the sonogram. So there you go. That's more evidence of like this baby. That's her scrapbook. So this like kid is like 16 or 15 or something with a sonogram. Like, wow. Anonymous. I'm only halfway through this. I got like 100 slides. So I already posted that picture of the sonogram yesterday. It just went crazy viral. Like people were really interested in it. These are kids. That's a scrapbook. Close your eye. I mean, people have read this before. Maybe you haven't seen it, but like, close your eyes, close your eyes, close your eyes. Don't speak. She doesn't talk. I can't stop shaking. It's been a week. The decision was made, but I can't tell Jeffrey these things happen. Why didn't I close my eyes fast enough? The doctor was different again. So there's multiple doctors involved. I think from Israel. He had kind eyes, but didn't speak directly to me. This was different. A shot and all those rod like things he had a hook and so much pain. So I think it's like a forced birth. Ghislaine said to push all the pain away. I don't understand. Blood and water all over the bed, and she was right. Like a feeling when your tummy hurts and you have to push. She said to close my eyes and put her hands over my eyes, but I didn't close them because of these tiny cries. This is so sick. These are demon people. Ghislaine should be re-prosecuted. Like, this is so freaking gross. I'm so lost I saw between her fingers this tiny head and a body in the doctor's hands. It reached its tiny arm up and had a tiny foot. I closed my eyes and no more. It's EFTA 02731361. This is from civil litigation, guys. I don't understand. Just say these things happen. He doesn't believe that. They yelled and screamed, and he said it will be the same in a couple of months. And she said she was fed up with it all. I don't understand what's going on, and no one will tell me. I can't go to school. This kid's in school. I can't stop shaking. Why won't anyone make it stop? Why didn't I close my eyes? That's what, see, like these are translated from that. So this translation is this. This little kid was writing in a cipher. In the hall, Ghislaine was said she was beautiful. She was, not is. She was a beautiful girl. I heard her. Where is she? Why did she stop whimpering? She was born. I heard the tiny cries. I can't do this anymore. What's the FBI doing in the DOJ? It's incredible. Like everything should stop and try to figure out this. I can't even read it anymore. There's all kinds of names I'm not familiar with. Unlike drugs, a child's body can be sold over and over. So that's like trafficking is worth more than drugs now. Like Mar-a-Lago, where I see Mr. Joe and Miss Ann. Who was that? What's she doing at Mar-a-Lago? That's 2012. Is she at Mar-a-Lago in 2012? Who is this person? I don't know. Please release me from this torture in hell. That's what it says, I think, at the very bottom here is please release me from torture in hell. 21st century slave. So the kid is like doing scrapbooks of something, about her, like a trauma journal. And go to New Mexico. So there's more things of validating New Mexico. She's bouncing around. Virginia Giuffre said she was taken to New Mexico too. There's pictures of her there actually, so we can validate her statements. Why superior gene pool? Why me? It makes no sense. Why my hair color and eye color? It feels very Nazi-like. But in thinking about these stupid, insane theories, I guess I guess in his mind it makes sense. The piano and Prusic comets are made to convince me this is right and will create perfect offspring, he calls them. So they're like definitely eugenicists. Yeah. I miss the person I was before I was made into what feels as a human incubator. These are crimes against humanity. These documents are all in there. It's all in data set 12, I believe. And you can check. I already, there's more like pictures of the sonogram, right? So are they doing the sonogram for her in these rooms at the mansion or something? Like, because they probably don't want a record of the baby. They don't want a record of it being in a hospital. So, like, if you go to do a sonogram at a hospital, there'll be a record somewhere. But these, I think, are ones where they don't want the record. Barely survived all those procedures. My heart is gone. The French lady whose pictures on the wall didn't have her. She had a thick accent, was kind. She said she'd been born to deliver babies and had been doing so before I was born. She put her hands inside of me and seemed worried. I didn't understand about the baby facing the wrong way. These are all- I was terrified seeing so much blood on the bed and floor and started to panic. These are just like, I don't want to read all of it. I mean, you can. I'll put links to all this stuff, but these are all from civil cases. That's the title of this, and why I'm trying to impart. These documents are pertaining to civil cases handled by attorneys. A lot of them were attorneys who handle abuse. I actually saw what the Freeman woman specializes in, like child porn and kids who were abused, and she's been on TV. I've seen her on, like, talking to Chris Cuomo, who's a complete idiot. I don't even know why he's even on TV. Shouldn't even be called a journalist. Um, Mr. Glipman, trips to about Michigan and about Clearwater. That's Florida. Like, what are you doing in Clearwater? Clearwater is like this, I think, the central place for Scientology, Clearwater, Florida. The exact same British lady from Clearwater was there. She talked to me all night. Man named Mr. Robert and his pretty wife Jill. I don't know who these people are. Jeffrey treats me like I'm special property. When I need Ghislaine, she is working, and Mary is just as batshit crazy as my mom. Alice in effing Wonderland for them. There's other girls. The other girls, well, some are nice, but 3 I hate. So it's just more like statements. Well, I mean, it's weird too. Like, this is redacted. Blank should not brag because that was yucky. Andrew is like his brother in this, Ray. Is that both he and Larry Summers are effing disgusting. What the hell is going on? She's got all these names of people that have never been investigated. Like, what's going on? Yeah, so those have all been translated, all those like cryptic ciphers or whatever. They're all on here. And all these names. It's just like, ugh. But what's important to realize is that these people, I think, are talking to the Southern District of New York about their civil cases. And that's in the, this is EFTA. Which one is that? I just saw it there. It's EFTA something, but like these are civil. I'll try to make a list of this and put it on my Patreon. But the civil cases, these are civil, like the lawyers, I think, are obligated to send all this information about criminal acts to these things. Like, I mean, it's just off the charts. Let me see if I can find this. Anyway, there's just, this is 173 pages. I feel like this is just a good start, but like I said, and here's the potential conspirators document. They researched all this stuff. This is the one. So Berman did all this work. December 2019. 85 pages, tons of statements. Like, I mean, I could do a whole nother show on this. Look at all the redactions, but like, he's talking about investigation to potential co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein, December 2019, after he was dead. So it's just really crazy. So I'm at the hour mark. Let me check the comments. Kind of verifies all the conspiracies we talk about for years. No question about it. Hey, Bart, welcome. How do we know it decides what's redacted? Well, it's the redacted file. Let me see if I can find it. I know it's the FBI file. I have it somewhere in my records, but I have a lot of new records, so I don't know what I did with it. But there it is. This is the guidance. Actually found that pretty fast. No, that's not it. So this is a really important document that's included on here. I think this comes from the top. New York FBI, CID. Guidance needed. They're asking from March 2025 to people at the FBI. Good morning. Do you know what the guidance for redacting images or who would be able to assist with the guidance be CSAM victim? CSAM is the kind of new acronym for child sexual abuse material. Do we have clear guidelines? Good morning, sirs. FBI New York. I am blue. These are acronyms I don't even know. Blue IMD RIDS request guidance for redacting photographs. Who's protected? We need guidance to redact 1B items. There are several boxes that need to be processed. Subjects of this investigation, Epstein method. IMD RIDS needs clear and specific guidance to redact those photographs. Some photographs depict victims, unknown identified females and males, former U.S. presidents, Secretary of State, and other celebrities. So other celebrities are in there. So I think that they were trying to figure out, like, are these supposed to be redacted or not? That's EFTA 016494145. I got to look at that document again. But I mean, that's the like I mentioned earlier, it's the fact um that they were redacting in March. They were starting to redact stuff. So I think that these are huge tells that this whole redaction process was taking place. And I don't think it was from somebody from Congress. I think it just was some kind of other instruction to get it done. Hey, Donald, welcome. Jacqueline, sounds changed. I know that's something wrong. The mic works pretty well, but if you touch the cord, it just like falls out of the back of my computer. Is the sound working now? Because I hope so. It says it's working. Sounds like he's talking to Tunnel. Hey, Sean, welcome. Bill Gates article. Oh, also, I'll pull it up if I can find it. There it is right here. This is like incredible. This guy did an incredible job. Kevin Bass is his name. I mean, he did some heavy lifting on this. So Kevin Bass, I think you can follow him on X. Let me check that out. Let's see. But he did this file, I think, on Bannon too. Bill Gates files, chronological evidence brief, Key Gates Epstein interaction, 908 documents, 2009 2023. Every quote verbatim from Department of Justice files, every document linked to its. Melinda Gates once met Jeffrey Epstein, once called him evil personified. She had nightmares. Bill Gates went back 30 times more and saw nothing illicit. Yeah, right. You just found out you tried to get drugs to your wife because you had a STD, bro. Executive summary. Like I said, I think you can find a link to this at Kevin Bass on X. So that's where I followed this guy. I think Maxwell was a real agent. She seemed to be, to me, she was much more polished than Jeff. So I think in that sense, you're right. I think that she was kind of like the brains, and he was kind of the contact guy, like the front dude, like, hey, I'm Mr. Jeff, I'm fun loving, don't you know? Everyone going about Jeffrey, plenty of claim she was worse. Yeah, no, she seems like a real monster too. To quote, focus on her. Those are different babies. I think that there's two different documents. Yeah, each sonogram is different. Yeah, yeah. So it's those are the civil litigation cases that I came across that are in the Epstein files. So I will put this up in my Patreon. There should be a link to the Patreon. If you want, let me see. Um, but yeah, they're really grim, guys. They're really rough. There's all kinds of like ritual biting of genitalia and stuff in there too. But yeah, I think I'll just keep a collection of that so I know like this document's 175 pages. But like I said, some of that stuff I don't. I mean, I think you can use it for fair use, but be careful if you do check out those EFTA. Just because it's just a warning, this is not legal advice, but my understanding is that just because it's in the files doesn't mean it's out of copy. It's not copyright or out of copyright. Some of that stuff seems to be copyrighted material. So you're allowed for criticism and commentary, which is what I just did for the last hour, but you can get in trouble if like putting in the wrong place and stuff like that. But I will try to put all the EFT numbers and I'll put them on my X. So if you are listening to this on my Spreaker, go check out my X page. I recommended that earlier. I'll try to put the EFTA numbers or the Bates numbers so you can check out these documents. And the best way to contact me is through Twitter these days, or you can always send me an email, William Ramsey Investigates at protonmail.com. I do get back to a lot of my Patreon followers, so I'm on there every day posting materials and Epstein stuff. So you can check out things there. And then my website with old articles and stuff. Like I've been writing for 15 years. But anyway, I think it's a good overview. The whole point of starting this was to impart that there's civil litigation that happened after. And I think there's hundreds of cases. A lot of the stuff may never come public. But this one Berman case is really something like the fact that they redacted this is just shocking. But like there's just so many testimonies. This might be a whole nother thing. Like it's the same. It's the same pattern you see in the civil stuff. And this is a criminal inquiry. This is the criminal inquiry by Berman. Now you see his name there at the top, Joffrey S. Berman. There's a real question of why Joffrey S. Berman got fired. Why did he get fired after he wrote these documents? Because he wrote another one about potential conspirators for business conspirators, corporation conspirators that some people haven't seen. Yeah, possible corporate. So these might have been like bombshells, like, whoa, we could be corporate. Here's the other one right here. I don't know if anybody's really found this one yet. This is the corporate analysis of possible corporate prosecution. So he did two of these back to back in December. I think he was gone in January 2020. The behest maybe of Bill Barr. I don't know, but I think they fired him before Trump left office. I got to get my timelines, straight. But like, they go all this stuff, and it's all redacted. Like this one must be really important. It's a 12-page document from Berman titled "Analysis of Possible Corporate Prosecution." If you're in Congress or somebody in Congress or Thomas Massey, figure out why this one's totally redacted. Like I haven't heard them or anybody in Congress mention this document, but it's real important. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening. I really appreciate it, guys, and have a good one.